Welcome back to West Texas View.
Welcome back to our show today. It's a pleasure to have Clint Leach, who's the director of the Texas Veterans Cemetery that's located in Abilene. And we've been talking about the burial benefits that veterans have advantage of, but we've just touched briefly on also the opportunities that are available for spouses or children of veterans to make use of the Veterans Cemetery. But there's a little bit of different restrictions from this. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Spouses and children are also eligible for burial at the cemetery. The one thing that I did want to talk about is, while everything is free for the veteran, for a non-veteran spouse, there is a fee at the time of burial for him or her. Right now, that fee is $300.
Oh gosh, that's nothing.
It's a very small amount of money, but and that just it's, again, that's a small amount of money, but it's I'm sorry.
But the important thing is this is in addition to whatever the funeral home charges.
Correct.
We're just talking about the $300 is just for the interment at the cemetery.
Yes,
and does not, but it does include the service.
It includes the entire service.
And that's another thing I want. And I've got 2 or 3 things I want us to talk about. But one of the things is I was so impressed with the procession getting us around. We all met, and I want to walk the audience through this. We all met at the headquarters, and we had an assigned time. And then we drove around to the pavilion as a designated time. And everything was so managed because another funeral was going to be right behind us. And so your whole staff devoted itself to us during that 30-minute period, or whatever amount of time I've forgotten it was. And we had the ceremony, did the honor guard, and then we got back in our cars and was escorted out. And so it was just a wonderfully choreographed service that I just found so peaceful having gone through it. And then, but the other thing I wanted to talk about was the pre-registration. If I know that my father has cancer or something and will not be around for very much longer, I can go ahead and pre-arrange everything.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And that's something that we encourage people to do, is they can come to the office, sit down with me, one of my coworkers, or a volunteer that we have on site, to fill out a pre-registration form. What that does is that makes sure that I have, or the cemetery has, everything that it needs. So at the time of need, families are not having to scramble to try to find mom and dad's marriage certificate, or dad's discharge, or mom's discharge from the military. That way we've got everything we need. There's no having to slow the process down, and we can move forward with honoring the veteran or the family as best we possibly can.
And even if a child lives in Abilene, but they're going to want to bury them at the Mission Cemetery, they could come to you and you could help them.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All the things that they needed together to prearrange it at Mission.
Exactly. Mission is a sister cemetery, as is Colleen, as will be Corpus Christi. We all work together, and if someone wants to pre-register, I'll be more than happy to forward those forms to the appropriate cemetery for them. And
tell me then, when you talk about children, I hadn't even heard that in the equation before. So I'm a 45-year-old or 65-year-old child of a veteran that's already been in a cemetery. And so I want to pre-arrange my own burial there. And so then I could come and pre-arrange for myself, just like I could go to a funeral home and make all the pre-arrangements.
So long as the child is a veteran in their own right, they're eligible for burial. But with children that are eligible for burial in the cemetery, they have to be under the age of 18 when they pass away, or physically or mentally dependent
Okay.
on a parent throughout the duration of their life, or if they're actively pursuing a college degree under the age of 23,
Okay.
then they're eligible.
Okay.
And again, that $300 fee would apply to that child as well, if that child was not a veteran.
And so the mother, if she were buried there, the spouse, does not have to be a veteran, just married to a veteran.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the child, if the child was a veteran, the child would be buried in their own rights. And
Correct.
would not be, but could be buried close to if there was space available.
Well, the way that we actually use our cemetery spaces is on an as-need basis. We just move straight down the line. In true military fashion, everybody lines up as they did
And
while in
marches
the service.
in.
Exactly. But so we can't do family plots. The only time we will ever reserve a space for an individual is if both spouses are veterans in their own right. Because the way the state of Texas looks at it, it's one grave space for one veteran. So husbands and wives, if one is not a veteran, they will share the same space as the veteran. And the same goes for child as well. They'll share the same space with the parents.
That's interesting. Well, tell me what else you think that people need to know that are not familiar with a veteran cemetery.
Okay. We talked about the services that we provide. Over the years, I've noticed there's been a lot of confusion about, is a casket provided? Is the whole funeral provided? And again, what we can provide to the veteran is the grave space, the opening and closing of the grave space, a concrete grave liner, if they're going to be buried in a casket, the headstone and the perpetual care. Anything that comes before the cemetery, cost-wise, will fall to the veteran, the veteran's family, or the estate.
There's a lot to know about the Veterans Cemetery, and we've just tried to touch the surface to show you that there's this opportunity available to you. So any questions that you've asked, call that number on your screen, or call me and I'll give you the information that I have and get you in touch with Clint, because this is a wonderful service that our state and federal government provides for our veterans, and for goodness sakes, you certainly deserve it. We'll see you next Sunday with another program. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for joining us for News West 9's West Texas View with Johnny Lou Avery. This has been a public affairs presentation of KWAB-TV and KWES-TV.